Unmuted. All right, welcome back. We hope you enjoyed the sneak peek excerpts. And thank you for those who just joined us after the start. I'm Yael.
Hey everyone, I'm Yoni. And Yael and I are the directors and producers of When We Fight. It's a film about the 2019 LA teacher strike. What you just saw were excerpts from our rough cut. So we're still editing, and we've got 2 days left. Actually, now we've got fewer than 39 hours for all those English teachers watching on our Kickstarter to raise money so we can finish the film. So if you liked what you saw, please check out our Kickstarter. You can check the link in the chat. It's bit.ly/whenwefight-the-movie. Hopefully that link is in the chat so you all can just click it there. Thanks to a ton of very generous people and organizations, we're able to offer some amazing education justice themed rewards. We're offering ebooks like Red State Revolt, Strike for America, and More Than a Score that talk about teacher strikes and high stakes testing and all that stuff. We're offering subscriptions to Labor Notes. It's an amazing monthly magazine about union or workplace organizing in general, rethinking schools, social justice, education, prints from by an LAUSD alum of the strike, and many more. So please check it out, and if you can, please donate or spread the word.
Great. And we want to welcome and introduce you to two powerful teachers and organizers who are going to speak with you about what we just saw in the film, and about teacher strikes in general that are going on still, struggles around the country today. So I'm thrilled to introduce you to President of United Teachers LA, Cecily Myart-Cruz. Cecily has taught for 26 years at both the middle school and elementary levels, and she is now the first woman of color to serve as UTLA president in the union's 50-year history. She is also the chair of the NEA Black Caucus and a member of Black Lives Matter. Hi, Cecily.
Hey, we'd also like to welcome West Virginia middle school teacher and strike leader Jay O'Neill. We're super happy to have Jay here. As many of you on the call probably know, the 2018 West Virginia strike inspired a cascade of teacher strikes across the country. And many people recognize that, including Time Magazine, who named Jay as one of the 100 most influential people in the world the year of that strike, or right after that strike. So we're thrilled to have Jay and Cecily here. Thank you both for coming.
Yeah, thank you guys. And so I just want to jump right in. I think both of you have had really successful strikes and really powerful unions that people look to now. And I'm just wondering, how did you get that level of power? Like each of you, how did you get to that place where you were able to achieve so much that quickly?
Okay, I'll start because we're rapid fire here.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest part has to go back to the educators. Educators are the folks that produce the mass amount of power, but then also we have to bring in community, parents, and students as just working together. So those one-on-one conversations turned into massive conversations where parents and students and community members wanted to engage with us like never before.
Yeah, I'll just echo a little bit of what Cecily said. She talked about, the one-on-one conversations turning into this massive thing. And that's really what happened here. I mean, I think the biggest thing for us is people finally started talking to each other. For years, there were these frustrations with things, and I think people were kind of isolated in their classrooms or maybe with their colleagues at their school, but just kind of venting in the teacher's lounge, but never seeing any bigger than that. And so what happened here was people started talking kind of across districts, across job titles, across unions, and realizing, oh, wow, we're all in the same boat. And our initial issue was healthcare, and not even just teachers, all public employees in our state are covered by the same health insurance plan. So once people started talking and realizing, oh yeah, you're just as mad about this as I am, it didn't take long for people to come together, make a plan, and then carry it out.
Yeah, definitely the bread and butter, talking to each other. And I guess on that note, a lot of organizing is happening online now. But, to be fair, also a lot happened online in 2018 and 2019. In West Virginia, there was the rank and file educators Facebook group. And UTLA also tons of weekly, sometimes daily Facebook Live updates along with other online organizing. So I was wondering, given that that's kind of our new normal in general, if you two can talk about what is the role of online organizing and what advice you have for educators organizing online today, everything from the big picture to the nitty gritty, what have you found?
I mean, I think it's super useful. And again, it's a great way for people to not feel isolated and to connect with others and share ideas and get feedback. I guess the most important thing, though, is it still has to move beyond that. You can't be a keyboard warrior and just think you're an organizer, it's gotta move beyond. And that may be something simple, you can't just get in the Facebook group and we're going on strike. It's not gonna work. You've got to do stuff to build up to it. Maybe it's just a Red for Ed t-shirt day or an informational picket somewhere, kind of testing to see how much support you have. But I think it's an initial way to bring people together. It's a really good tool.
Yeah, I also would say that social media is a great tool to get the message out there, but we can't stop there. I think Jay highlights that piece. It's different now because we're in COVID, right? So I think that part has changed. So a lot of our interactions are over social media, but that doesn't mean that it has to just live on social media, being on, Facebook and in these groups. Once you're making these connections, actually picking up the phone and talking to folks, because once you start to do that, you're having these in-depth conversations that can move to something else. And that's, I think, what Jay goes back to what Jay said, all these folks started to see, wait a minute, we have the same fight. And if we're looking at, if we're having the same fight, how do we connect? And so right now, in the time of COVID, that's the key question. How do we then connect our struggles to what is a larger picture? And so those are the kinds of conversations that need to take place, especially now that we're dealing with crisis distance learning, because there are going to be other phases in, either being, at home and, doing work from home. There's going to be a time where they're going to ask you to do work from home and work from school, doing a hybrid. And so and that's already crazy because we're going to see a shift or a spike in the level of folks being overwhelmed in their work. So these are the kinds of conversations that we need to have right now to prepare for what's to come. Because eventually we're going to have to come back into the schools, right? There are three phases, the way I see it, right? It's right now, whatever's happening now, remote learning, crisis distance learning, a hybrid, and then eventually being back in the school building. So if we have these three phases, and if we're not talking about what it looks like realistically, let alone start talking about what it looks like for funding, because that folks are going to want to, cut jobs, that's the conversation that we've got to have right now to actually shore up all of our bases to say, you're not going to lay off, you're not going to use austerity and neoliberalistic tactics in this struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely, I'm here in New York, and they are simultaneously, trying to do this hybrid, figuring out what they can do and how, and there's a lot there to unpack. And then at the same time, talking about layoffs, huge layoffs in the city because of COVID. And but I wanted to actually just touch on one of the quick things that you were mentioning, Jay, that wearing red and doing informational pickets. That was one thing that we learned a lot about and saw a lot in LA was these structure tests, as Jane McAlevey calls them, right? You do these structure tests, to see how many people are on board, right, and build up. And I was wondering if you two if either of you could talk about one or two different structure tests that you did and what that looked like. And potentially, again, online or not online, whatever you think is useful today for educators.
Well, I mean, I think Jay brought a couple of them up, right? Wearing the red shirt day, and then having those assessments, like having your roster and looking who actually wore red shirts, right? So today is UTLA day. Today is Tuesday. It's UTLA day. Wear red. So how many folks at your site are actually wearing red, even in this virtual environment, right? To spend the red shirt day, you're wearing red. Make your background something that says like UTLA strong or UTLA now or UTLA red shirt day. So every time you're going into a faculty meeting, you are actually showing the strength of the union right there for all to see. So that's just one, the red shirt, and then having the assessment. And then Jay spoke about informational picketing, and I'm sure he has some other things to bring up.
Yeah, just as far as informational picketing goes, one thing we did was called walk-ins. So, you would show up. For us, it was a half an hour before the school day starts, and just hold up signs, along, hopefully if you've got a major road outside your school or maybe where parents are dropping the kids off with the issues. And it's kind of a low risk, high reward type thing because all your coworkers, you're still walking into work, you're still reporting at the right time. And it's a great way to, see how many people at your school turned out for it. But also it really builds kind of a sense of solidarity with your coworkers. I know for me, people that I did not think would show up were there like right on time, full force, ready to go. And so it kind of brought us closer together as a school. And I think that's even really paid dividends further down the road. So walk-ins, easy to do and high reward.
I guess I'm wondering, a lot of people that are watching this aren't in unions with really strong leadership. And Jay, you talked a little bit about how you guys were talking to each other, and that was really helpful. I wonder what advice you have for people that are unhappy with their union, and maybe their local isn't a fighting union, and how do they get to that place?
Well, let me see. No, I'm just saying, if you are here watching this and, you feel any type of way inspired, then I'm going to say you are the ones to lead the change. End of story. You are the ones to lead the change. If you're unhappy about something, get involved and then get a few people. 5 people. You can have a chapter action team or a CAT team and then work it that way, especially at your school site. If you have different departments, so the English department at a middle school or high school, have someone that's in that middle school department, so forth and so on. Doing that kind of level of engagement, I think, is going to pay dividends. Because we can all complain about what's not being done. We could do it better. I'm sure that there are folks that can say, I can do it much better than you. Cool. Then I would say, rise to the challenge. Let's go. Get involved. Because at the end of the day, we have to move from righteous anger, because we know a lot of folks felt a certain kind of way, and I'm sure in West Virginia, and Jay can say if this is true, felt some kind of way after the strike, right? There are folks that were like, the strike was great. And then there were folks that were like, boo the strike. I didn't get it, all of that I wanted. Of course, you're going to have that. But I would say you have to be able to move move from righteous anger into righteous action. So like, you can't be stuck just there. How do you move to actually act and enact change?
Yeah, and I'll just follow up. Please don't quit your union when you're frustrated. So many people do that. Like, it's not doing anything for me. I'm out of here. Like, no, jump in, get involved. Like, you are the one you've been waiting for. You know, nobody else is going to do it for you. And I think the other key is talk to people, talk to your coworkers. And maybe reach out and don't just talk to the people that think like you. I mean, don't just find the coworker that has the Bernie Sanders sticker on the car in the parking lot. Like, talk to everyone, because you're going to have a lot more in common than you realize. And I think by having those conversations, it's hard work, but that's how you build a strong union.
Yoni, did you want to ask a question? Should I have one too.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. Well,
Democracy.
What's that? Okay. I'm wondering what schools are looking like for you guys right now. When we were watching the video, Cecily, you and I were talking, we're in California. And so on top of all of the other stuff that's going on with COVID, we also shouldn't be outside right now because of all the smoke and stuff. So how to navigate what's going on with COVID. And also, you know, I'm really curious how the strikes, your respective strikes maybe impacted your ability to mobilize now.
Yeah, I think that, thank you, Yael. That's a great question. So yes, here in California, we're having, you know, wildfires all over, and some wildfires, you know, just to note, are started by people who want to have a gender reveal party. So that's what this latest fire is happening. Someone did explosives, and then we have this massive thing happening, which is so crazy because you shouldn't have a party anyway. We're in COVID, but that's besides the point. So here we are in COVID, and I would say that the strength of the union is absolutely, you can see it, absolutely, because it was the strength of the union that closed schools on March 13th. So let's be clear. When we took it on March 12th, we took the conversation to our superintendent, to the governor and the mayor. All of them said, please do not close us. Don't call for a closure of schools. Do not do it. And of course we did. We called for that closure on the 12th of March, and on the 13th, which was the Friday, was the last day of school. That is the power of the union, because we went on strike and we showed folks that we're not going to back down. When folks tell us something, we're not going to back down. We did that then. Then, when we were getting ready to come back in, they were fully prepared to have us come right on back to schools. We said, let's find out what the members are thinking. 83% of the members said, no, we do not want to usher back into the building. So we called it again and said, we're not doing this. And then it happened the following week. On Monday, the superintendent said, we're not going back in. That's the power of the union. The power of the union is union strength, and it is collective strength. It is not just the leaders, it's the leaders on the ground. Rank and file make this happen all day, every day. So we don't lose sight of that, because that's what brings us the strength.
Yeah, and I think our strike here really raised people's expectations as far as their working conditions. So heading into this, there were a lot more, I almost want to say demands, I'll say requests put out by people for things, you know, with their school. But I'm going to be honest with you, this has been a lot harder fight to have unity around, at least here. I think because of the national politics, that's really affecting some of this. And then also kind of that urban-rural divide. You know, some people in West Virginia, really rural places, they haven't seen many cases. This whole thing is just an annoyance for them. And so it's really been different. We've really had to work to try to build unity on this and really bring people together. And we're still figuring it out. They're doing a great job of dividing us because we've got some schools in person, some remote. Everybody's dealing with it a little bit different. Every district is handling it differently. And so, yeah, now is the time we need unity. And I'll be honest, here in West Virginia, we're still kind of figuring out how to get there.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, thank you both. It's really interesting and powerful, and definitely something we saw on the ground in LA was just the chapter chairs at every single school site. You're talking over 900 schools, I think, and let alone then the people on the chapter, on the contract action teams, or et cetera, building so many layers of leadership. We're getting actually a couple questions in the chat that we want to, so we want to dive into some Q&A with the people watching at home. Right before we do, and as people continue to maybe put some more questions in the chat, we wanted to send some solidarity to a strike that actually just started today. So for everyone watching, if you haven't heard, over 1,000 graduate instructors at the University of Michigan went out on strike today. They walked the picket line in the pouring rain. Call back. It doesn't always rain when you strike, but if it does, it's a good sign. It makes it harder, but it makes, it really, it's that exactly, it brings people together. Thank you, Cecily. So they're demanding safer working and learning conditions amidst COVID-19, and they recorded a video message for us to explain a bit about what they're doing, to ask us for their solidarity. So let's watch that, and then we'll jump back in.
Hi, we're with GEO, the Graduate Employees Union at the University of Michigan. We're on strike right now, kicking off our picket line at 5 a.m. this morning in a thunderstorm, demanding a safe and just pandemic response for all. This includes financial relief for parents and international students. We also demand truly randomized testing of asymptomatic individuals, as well as greater transparency regarding the assumptions of the public health models underlying the university's pandemic response.
We demand the universal right to remote teaching. We also demand access to a disarmed and demilitarized workplace, as well as a 50% cut in the budget of UM's campus police. Finally, we demand the extension of degree milestones and funding for all graduate students.
Although we don't have exact numbers of who is on strike, we have asked graduate students to pledge to withhold their labor, and to date we have 1,300 of those pledges. At our general membership meeting Monday, we had an attendance of over 680 members, and we have almost 1,500 people who have signed up to picket with us, 850 of which will be in person.
You too can help us from afar. Sign up to join our virtual picket at bit.ly/GEO picket. We are running virtual pickets in Zoom on 3 shifts, from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., all Eastern Standard Time. If you follow the link in my virtual background, you will also find links to actions there too that you can join in on. Finally, you can donate to our strike fund at bit.ly/GEO contribute, all lowercase, and help us cyberbully UM on Twitter as well. You can follow us on social media at GEO3550.
We're grateful and honored to follow in the footsteps of educators who have been organizing for decades, including many of you watching. We stand on the shoulders of giants. To other educators and workers across the country, the nationwide support and solidarity we're experiencing is incredible and heartwarming. Organize your workplace. If you're already organized, fight back against oppressive institutions. Now is the time.
Yeah, so really powerful and some great ideas there. Virtual pickets, definitely something for us all to bring back home. So if you can, please support these strikers, walk the virtual picket line, donate funds, spread the word, and know that, if you do something, a work action or a strike in your location, that they'll be there in solidarity with you. So now we've got some time actually for questions from the audience. So we wanted to dive in to a question about New York. And so I'm not sure, I'll say a little bit what I'm saying. I'm not sure if you two, either of you have some thoughts on what's happening here in New York. The question is, any perspective on the New York City Department of Education and the UFT, the United Federation of Teachers, the union here? How do we understand the lack of militancy and what's the path forward? There's a lot there to unpack. Just one or two things I'll just say is in LA versus here, the things that we saw. So like last week or 2 weeks ago, they had the largest meeting of rank and file educators in New York in decades, and it was 1,000 people. And, we're talking in a union of over 100,000 people. In LA, they had meetings and rallies of, tens of thousands of people, rallies of tens of thousands, meetings of hundreds of chapter chairs and hundreds and thousands of rank and file educators. So I think that affects things, that changes things. So that's something that we saw and that you get to see in the film. And so I guess Cecily, Jay, do you two have any thoughts about what's happening in New York, or just kind of in comparison, maybe what's happening in LA or West Virginia?
Well, I mean, I don't follow the UFT, so much, and maybe I should, I'll admit I probably should. That was a striking number that you just laid out, because I thought in my head, I'm thinking, oh, it's probably like, they had 30, 40, 50,000 people come out when you said that, Yoni. And to think that there was only 1,000. Okay, so then you have to start to think why that is, right? Is there apathy brewing there? What can turn the tide in actually saying, how do we move? How do we start to do what Jay, brought up earlier, having those cogent conversations of other folks to start to galvanize something to create some change? Or are people happy the way things are? I think for us, so just as a comparison for LA, I think, and you said this, Yoni, at the top, like folks are used to just, or maybe it was Jay, going into your classroom, doing what you have to do, supporting your babies and that. And it's like, I'm closing my door. I don't care about what else is going on. But it's like, we couldn't do that anymore, right? When you're not getting a pay raise, when you know that your students, some students are homeless, there's food insecurity, like there's all these things. Like for us, we had students that were being randomly searched. Those are things that you can't turn away from. You've actually got to get involved and get in that fight to say, wait a minute, we can do something to actually change the scope of the trajectory and change the path. And so as we're trying to do that, we had to start to have those cogent conversations with other folks to say, are you feeling the same way we're feeling? And if so, how do we band together? Because we cannot be silent anymore.
I can't say too much about the UFT. I know it's massive. I mean, over 100,000 teachers. That's got to be probably the biggest local union in the entire country. But I know there's really good organizing going on with the More Caucus. I just wanted to give them a shout out on this. I know they organized a lot of the sick outs in the spring that helped shut school down, and they're the ones that organized that meeting of over 1,000 rank and file teachers. And they know this too. I'm not saying anything they don't know. It's going to take time and it's going to be a lot of work, but I feel like people already for years have been putting in that work and having those one-on-one conversations. And so if you're out there in New York, check out the More Caucus as some of your kind of fellow rank and filers doing good work.
Jay, what a great lead into this other question that we got, which was about how to build a caucus. Like, can you guys talk about how you build a caucus and any tips you would have for people along those lines?
Yeah, I'll start, I guess. We built a caucus after our strike, which I know is not the normal order. But it's basically connecting with like-minded people who have the same ideals and want to see the same thing in their union and want to work together to bring it about. And honestly, like, don't make it too difficult. It doesn't really need to be difficult. Just get together with people, start having conversations, talk about what you want to see. I'd recommend coming up with a handful of principles that everyone is in full agreement upon, and I wouldn't sweat all the other details. Don't worry about having all the structure. You don't need it at first. Don't worry about money. Don't just get together, meet, think about what you want to see from your union, and again, have those conversations with people.
Yeah, I think Jay covers it. And then taking it one step further, because we had a caucus prior to the strike, right? And so just doing that, having like-minded folks come together to actually have conversations, but then having a platform, that's the principles that Jay is talking about, having those principles and platform to actually guide conversations, guide what the caucus is actually going to do. And then revamping those principles and platform. That's something that we need to do in our caucus, is actually revamp so that we bring in more aspects. For me, what I would like to see is more aspects of racial justice. Like, we've got to deal with that. We have a racial reckoning happening outside, and we've got to be able to address that. And what are some of those key moments or key issues that we want to be a part of and be able to move through folks, with folks, in folks, as we move the conversation further?
Absolutely. And actually, we got another question from the audience asking exactly about that, about the Black Lives Matter uprisings that we're living through, the very necessary uprisings that have reshaped the country and yet still not enough, right? And so the question, what is the role? I guess, sorry if I'm editorializing a little bit on the question, because there are so many things to ask. So one of the things that our audience member asked is, what's it like to see this film come together now? And does anything seem more possible? Does anything more seem possible now? And I would just add a kind of a question about, it'd be great to hear about what, I know UTLA has already won some things on making Black Lives Matter in school. And just, what's the role of educators and educators unions in this moment and in this long, in the United States of America forever?
Yeah, that is such a powerful question. So whoever asked it, fantastic. The role of educators in the Black Lives Matter movement, we have the role. We are the leaders of that role. Why? Because we teach babies. And we've got to be able to affirm our students and their experiences and actually teach. As a middle school teacher, I miss being in the classroom every single day. Anyone who knows me knows I miss being in front of children every day. Why? Especially now. This is the role of the union, to build critical thinkers. And the way we build critical thinkers is actually having the autonomy to actually, and the academic freedom to actually bring up these conversations, to hear what folks are talking about and expound on those. And then bringing in, for me, literature or social studies to actually try to break down, because we know that that racism and structural racism and institutional racism exists. But then what is the other role of the union? Is to actually build anti-racist educators, period. And we are going to have to start to shift the curricula for our babies and really addressing how do we become anti-racist educators. We've got to break down policies, programs, procedures that are continuing the marginalization and oppression of students.
Cecily's hard to follow, but I just like, the only thing I'll add to that is here in West Virginia, I think demographically, I think we're about 93% white. And so you hear from a lot of people here thinking like, well, that's not really an issue for us, mostly white. And that's a huge problem because that means it's a massive issue, right? Like you can't just ignore something like this. And so I really want to just agree with what she's saying, and especially as a union working to be, you know, not just what I feel like is happening a lot of like just it's ignoring the issues that are there, but actually being anti-racist and really taking a stand and really educating our students in those ways. So what? Your classroom's all white. That's fine, but you can teach them to be anti-racist. And I think that's really important to think about right now.
I just want to add that one piece for everyone that's watching, because when my girlfriend and I do our Making Black Lives Matter in the classroom, and we've done it all over, one of the things that we say, because people will say, I have no Black kids in my class. So Black Lives Matter, but I don't have any kids in my class. And we always say that whoever you have in your class, you want to look at the most marginalized kid in that class. And so if you have a class of all white kids or all Latino kids or all Black kids, that's not the most marginalized kid in your class. It's probably the LGBTQ plus kid or the trans kid that is in your class. And if you fix it for that baby, then you fixed it for everyone. Fix it for them, you fixed it for everyone, because now you have a just system set up in your classroom. Just fix it for the most marginalized child, and you fixed it for everyone. And it's also to note, Black Lives Matter movement has gotten praise from the Navajo Nation, because the Navajo Nation has stood by for 87 years with a football team calling indigenous folk mascots. And because of the Black Lives Matter movement, the Navajo Nation has praised Black Lives Matter because they are able to finally not be considered a mascot when it comes to a football team. That is very powerful. That's why Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, Cecily, that was really well said and really sort of shows, you know, in large what solidarity can look like in all these different spectrums. To that point, someone was saying, what do I do when a teacher says they don't want to be political? They go, oh, I don't want to touch this. You know, I just want to teach. And not just specifically maybe about BLM, but just in general when you're trying to get your union going. What do you say to that person?
Teaching is political. Every single day, teaching is political. And teaching is also a revolutionary act. And so we need to also, because all that paperwork that's in your classroom, that's political. All of the stuff that Betsy DeVos said that she's not going to do, that's political. All of the stuff that the administration in the White House is saying they're not going to do for SPED kids, that's political. So everyday teaching is political. Everyday teaching. And it is up to us as educators, as parents, as community members, as students to start the uprisings now. Start those uprisings so that we can do something different, because what was before wasn't good enough. It wasn't working for our students. Now is the time to re-envision what schooling could actually look like so that we can uplift our babies.
Yeah, I'll just agree with that. I mean, during our strike, we kind of had initially, I think, some people saying that, oh, I'm not really political. But as it went on, they realized all these people at the Capitol were making all these decisions that directly affected their classroom, and suddenly thought, oh, this is a lot more political than I thought. And Cecily brings up a good point. COVID has really brought this to the forefront. Like, we've been kind of like putting Band-Aids on a lot of things for a long time and just trying to make it work in our classrooms, from ventilation systems to schools not having, hot water to just whatever. Lots of problems in our schools. And it's really been highlighted now, and it makes it even more clear how political this is, because let's be honest, it's about political priorities, right? We could have fully funded schools, we could have well-paid teachers, we could have a nurse in every classroom. Like, it could totally be done, but it's politics and those political priorities. That's what's keeping it from happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And it actually makes me think, I was reading this book about the Newark, New Jersey teacher strike, I think of 67. And it just talks about how, once the teachers went on strike, then they started to see how the news coverage, was saying things and leaving things out, and so it changed people's minds about the newspapers they were reading, and that these kinds of, once you start organizing together, once you have those conversations and start taking action, you see, it changes people's minds. And so it's a process, that feeds into itself, hopefully. And it's something that you two, obviously, and everyone in LA and West Virginia did so amazingly. So we are, unfortunately, in the last couple minutes. So, it's been such a great conversation, and I'm sorry we're not able to take all of the questions. But alas, we have to wrap up. I know actually some educators on the call have another call they have to go to, such as our lives these days. So we want to wrap it up. I'm going to just kind of, before we thank everyone for coming, just wanted to say again, if you liked what you saw, in the conversation and in the excerpts that we showed at the beginning, those are part of our rough cut. We're working hard to finish the film. We actually just did a new interview with Cecily last month to kind of bring it up to date on some of these questions about COVID, and the Black Lives Matter uprising. So if you can, please consider donating or sharing the Kickstarter with a friend. It's bit.ly/whenwefight-the movie. I know it's a little funny. You can also go straight to our website, whenwefightfilm.com, and you can check out the Kickstarter there, or you can sign up for emails. Every dollar counts and helps, and it's a way for us also just keep in touch with you and your unions and your coworkers and find ways to bring the film to you when it's over. So please, and share this video. This video will be live for you to share with your coworkers and family and friends.
Yeah, thank you, Cecily. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Labor Notes and Haymarket. And thank you guys all for watching. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.